we have more than just soccer. It wasn't the only sport. We had sectionals with field hockey, had massive matchups all around the Southern Tier. A quarterfinals matchup with the 3-seeded Marathon against the 6-seeded Moravia. Head to the second half where the Olympians had a 1-0 lead, but the Blue Devils get a stop. Marathon wanted the second score as this goal would just find the back of the net. Abby Ensel extending that lead. They wanted more on the penalty corner. But once again, Moravia, they're just showing off their defense today, rejecting that one. The Olympian Catherine Newkirk would join the fun with a game-sealing goal. Marathon wins 4-0 and will play against Deposit Hancock on Tuesday in the semifinals.
The 5th seed Spencer Van Eaton defeated Walton 1-0 going into the quarterfinal matchup. The Eagles will have a matchup with Whitney Point on Tuesday.